They say if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Yet so many entrepreneurs and business owners find themselves surrounded by a team and still feeling more alone than ever because they struggle with team members who underperform, lack initiative, or simply don't seem to be invested in the mission. The answer to all of those struggles is culture. So how can I create a culture where my employees take more ownership and feel more personally invested?
Yeah, profit sharing is a great idea.
Our guest today, David Hansel, knows this challenge better than most. David is a seasoned entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience in SaaS and e-commerce. He's the co-founder of multiple companies. David's unique philosophy, grounded in concepts like love, not fear, and building values-driven cultures, has transformed not only his businesses, but the lives of those he leads.
I think if you foster a culture where people do their job out of love and not out of fear, and you have like a more loving, caring environment inside of the business, this almost solves itself.
So how do you go from feeling like you're the only one invested in your business success to leading a team that's not only engaged, but takes full ownership of the roles? David will reveal the strategies that helped him achieve this across multiple businesses.
One example I can give in terms of creating environment for people to thrive is we did this by breaking up the traditional way of.
In this episode, we dive into creating a culture of trust and autonomy. David shares how his teams went from silos to thriving communities where employees innovate fearlessly. David offers actionable tips for creating a workplace people just don't want to leave. David, what in your experience is the secret to getting employees genuinely excited to come to work each day?
I think the biggest hack or the biggest thing you can do inside of your organization to make people genuinely excited to come to work every day is make them work on meaningful things and make them see the impact that they're having.
How do you do that?
With the example of the...
I promise you that by the end of this episode, you'll be packed with insights you can implement today. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. It helps us continue bringing you conversations like this and ensures the algorithm serves you with the exact content you need right when you need it. Now, let's dive into this week's episode of The Tipping Point of Success. The podcaster's worst nightmare just happening to me.
You lost
earlier
your voice?
Today, I had an...
Oh.
I had an amazing, worse. I had an amazing episode with like this great guest and we had a great conversation. And of course, at the end, we discovered that I wasn't recording anything.
Ooh. You're already
I didn't
recording,
press
so
record.
I think...
Oh my God. So I just did. And like, I think I forgot to tell you that the concept of this podcast is bringing amazing guests like you, sharing their expertise and their experience. I'm absorbing and taking the advice, implementing it in my own businesses, and making a future video about what happened after I took
that's
all
amazing.
the advice. And I'm going to share it with you in a few months and share it with the viewers. So if I want to build a culture like yours, what's the first thing you would recommend me doing?
So first thing is like hire people who are excited about working on the things that you're building. And also, first of all, being clear about what you're building and ideally also make it sexy so people can relate to it. For example, a friend of mine runs a company called Time Doctor. It's a time tracking SaaS. And if their vision would be, we want to build the best time tracking software in the world, he would maybe find 5 people who are really excited about this because, to be honest, who really cares about time tracking at a deep level? So their vision is to lead the remote work revolution. And, they now have the biggest conference in the space called Running Remote. They wrote a book called Running Remote, etc. So and they have a large team who's really bought into it. So I think number one is define your mission and vision, make it sexy, make it exciting, and communicate it to people that you want to hire. I think that's number one. And second one, as I just mentioned in the example, give people autonomy to make decisions, empower them to not just be, go for it, go this, go get this, get that, empower them to make decisions and really own areas in the business. Create intrapreneurs, people who are the CEOs of their own life and that they really own an area. And aside from this, what I always love doing is to connect people on a deeper level, so people take off the mask and show to the team members who they really are. And there's 2 really good exercises for this. One is called the Lifeline exercise, where people share the highs and lows in their life with the team, let's say leadership team or entire team, depending on how large your company is. And the idea is that you are really vulnerable and open open up. So what works best is that you go first and you just like really go deep and share the things that really sucked in your life and the things that were great in your life for like 20 minutes. And then afterwards, we have a round of shared experiences, so people can say like, oh, I lost my father when I was young too. Or like, oh, I had a drug phase in my life as well, etc., etc. Because, then people, it's not just like Stephanie from marketing or Mitch from accounting. It's Stephanie who also went through depression. It's, Mitch. So people can connect on a much deeper level. And this really changed how you communicate, what camaraderie you have. And it's quite magical, actually, if you're doing this inside of your company. So pro tip, you go first, go really deep and vulnerable so people see like what, that it's a safe space. I can share this. And then have somebody else go second who's also at least as vulnerable as you. And then people, are okay with taking off the mask. And the second exercise, it's like the light version of this. It's called the 3-2-1 exercise, where people share 3 things that happened in their life that had a big impact on them, 2 people that had a big impact in their lives, and 1 decision that they've made that had a big impact in their life. And also, of course, why, and give some color around that. Like the fast version takes maybe 5 minutes for a person to present. It's also quite magical. I just share with you, I was in Athens because we launched Love Not Fear in Greece with a franchise partner there, Growth Point, really amazing team. And we went to one of their customers and we did the 3-2-1 exercise with the team. There were like 40-50 people there or so, and then we grouped them up into groups of 5 and they shared. And it's absolutely mind-blowing how the energy in the room changes once people connect on a deeper level versus like being like, oh, this is just a guy at work, versus like knowing people on the flow.
I love that. You had a diverse entrepreneurial journey from co-founding MaxCDN to leading multiple ventures. I want you to share with us some details about that journey, but specifically on how these experiences shaped your approach to fostering a creative and collaborative culture in businesses and startup.
So over the years of building organizations, I found that it's definitely not only me, I'm the driver, I'm usually the visionary, having like the idea and the direction, but then it really comes down to the team that really builds it. And for me, it became more and more important over the years to find a team who's super aligned with what we're building, that they're actually really excited about the mission and vision that we have inside of the organization, because only then people really push. Even sometimes it gets a little tough or hard. You may have some roadblocks, but if they really believe in the mission and vision, it's much easier to succeed. So I think it even starts with the job posting that you put out there, that we always put ideally a video of the hiring manager, or in smaller teams, myself, to create this video talking about what the job post entails, but also what the mission and the vision means to us, and also our core values, that we really are aligned with the people that we're getting on board. I could like branch out into a few stories where this worked or didn't work so well. For example, at MaxCDN, we hired the person who built Yahoo CDN, which is on paper the most amazing hire we could have scored. But he came from a very different organization, let's say, right? A different stage of an organization. I think there's like 3 types of people in startups. There's the guerrilla fighters that can thrive in chaos, that you can really just like, drop off somewhere and tell them like, hey, just conquer this mountain, and they'll figure out how to conquer this mountain without lots of direction.
Yeah, usually founders.
Yes, founders and the early team. Ideally, this is what you are on board. You want to be a speedboat, nimble and fast, so you can pivot fast and get there. And once these guerrilla fighters have conquered the mountain, let's say, the military comes in, and the military, it's still war, but it's more, if you shoot somebody, you have to report to the guy above you and tell him what happened, versus the guerrilla guy, he just like gets stuff done. So there's more structure to it and somewhat of a hierarchy. And then once let's say the war is over and you kind of really have your position down, the company is at a certain size, it's more like a police state. You do not think outside of the box, and you kind of like stick to, the rules. And when we hired this guy from Yahoo, he came from this like giant organization, and he did not fit into our chaotic small company culture, and we just like didn't get along with him. So for example, at MaxCDN later, we had a core value, which was build cool shit, because we want to attract people who are excited about building cool shit. We want engineering nerds to build what we want to build, but we also want to send the message of people who want to come to work with a suit and tie on, who may get offended by somebody using the word shit in their core values. We did not want them, So I think it's like, it really starts at the getting the right people on board for this company culture.
And being very aligned on your values.
Yes, values, mission, and vision. I think it's really important. And one example I can give in terms of creating a great environment for people to thrive is, I think people want to do meaningful work. They do not want to be micromanaged. They want to be able to put their heart and soul and all their capabilities into something, not just be a small wheel in the machine. And at UpCoach, one of my companies, we did this by breaking up the traditional way of software development. Initially we had our head of product speccing out all the features that were supposed to be built. And then, he goes like, okay, developer A, you build this, developer B, you build that thing, developer C, you build the other thing. And then the developers went to the dark little rooms and coded something, and then they came back and marketing announced it to the customer. And then customer support dealt with the issues, So it was kind of like silo. And the developer was like kind of disconnected from what he's building, because it's just like told to, hey, do this, and, kind of almost paint in the colors. 1 is green and 2 is blue, and, fill this in. He doesn't have to think that much, not really bring himself in and make interesting decisions other than how to code it. So we changed it, and we asked everybody to do customer support, even though people were kind of upset in the beginning, like, oh, why should I do customer support? I have this position or whatever. But we told them we want you to really understand what the pain points of the customers are, and we want you to really understand how our software works. And the best way of doing this is to do customer support. And then we went to the head of product, and he did not give like detailed specs on like what to build, because before, as I said, they didn't really have to think much. Now it's just a pool of ideas of different features we want to have, and they can pick. So the developer has the luxury to pick the project he wants to work on. And we also changed it up. Before, developers always give estimations. They said, okay, this is going to take me X days to build. But now we group them into small, medium, and large issues. And based on this, they have a certain amount of time. Small is that many days, large is more days. And this forces them to make faster decisions. But now, because they know the product and they know the pain points, they can make decisions by themselves. And I think this is where the real kicker comes in. We asked our developers to announce what they've built to a user community in our forum, because now the developer gets the praise for doing. Like I come out, it's like, hey, me, David, just built this feature here, and then people can say like, yeah, man, that's amazing. Thank you very much for this. Or they can also say like, hey, why did you do it like that? I thought it should work like this. So they're really connected with the product. They get the praise for it. They have real ownership over it, and they can make decisions about this, because I think people want to make decisions. And this really changed everything for us. And we had a 300% increase in output from the dev team.
Wow.
So I think this is like what I'm so passionate about, like creating cultures where people do their job out of love and not out of fear. People work on things that are exciting for them. They have the autonomy to make decisions by themselves. They're not just like told to like, hey, do this, go from A to B, and they get the praise for it. I think this really changed the game. Another element is like working with people that they like, and having good interpersonal connections with them.
All right, moving from SaaS and e-commerce into ventures like UpCoach and managing happiness seems like a significant shift. And I wanted to ask you what motivated you to make that transition, and how's your experience in tech influenced the way you approach these more personal, people-oriented projects?
Actually, I'm not sure how my tech experience has impacted this, but the reason why I started thinking about more deeper things than just like chasing money, because back in the days, it's like, yeah, startup, make a lot of money. This was like my kind of motivation, why I did what I was doing. And my wife went through breast cancer, and this was like a big wake-up moment for me, where I imagined myself on my deathbed, looking back at my life, thinking, did I really do what I was supposed to do? Did I have the impact I want to have in this life? Did I live a life worth living according to my standards? And what I realized that I would like to have more positive impact in the world. And I guess was an early midlife crisis that I.
But can I say something? Building Max CDN and scaling it to become one of the top CDN providers, it's a major achievement. Weren't you happy enough with that?
I was always happy. Let's put it this way. I just read something. The people who enjoys walking will always go further than the person who just like is excited about the destination. It's kind of like doing
Right.
the work, I guess. Like it's,
I'm not
and
meaning stopping that, but keep continuing it on that path. And you're saying it was a wake-up moment to change your path. And I was
yes.
wondering what was wrong about the other path,
So
about
I
the
did
path
not see.
before.
Yeah. I did. I want to have more impact in people's lives. And back then I also did not see that when you have a conscious business, a conscious business is actually the best vehicle to have a positive impact in the world. which I had this light bulb moment after reading Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods, where he makes the point that a conscious business, well, let me take one step back. A traditional business with the mission of increasing shareholders' value, aka making the owners of the business rich, versus a conscious business where you want to do good by all stakeholders, meaning suppliers, customers, employees, the market, the society, the planet, etc. If you have a conscious business, you have the best vehicle to have a positive impact, plus they make more money than the ones who are only focused on improving shareholders' value, especially with like millennials, Gen X, etc. Whatever the new generation is, they like really care more about these types of things. Alpha. And so if I would have read this book beforehand, maybe I would have stuck with Max at the end. But yeah, I want to do something that has more impact. And my idea back then was, I was like soul searching a lot. Like, what can I do? Kind of finding my ikigai. What does the world need? What do I love doing? What can I get paid for? And I'm blanking on the fourth one. Anyhow. Just like finding this thing, how I can have real impact, and went through lots of mental exercise on what this could be until I found that actually my wife and I have been running our lives like a successful business by defining our mission, vision, and values and goals and roles and responsibilities, etc. This has been working so well for us. So I thought, okay, let's share this with others. And this is how I went on this path, creating Managing Happiness. And then because on Managing Happiness, I had a DIY course, people that buy the course and do it by themselves, where only 7% of the people who bought the course completed the course, which was really bugging me because I was doing it more for impact than for money. And then I found a way of doing cohort-based coaching where people do it together in small groups, watch some videos, do some homework, and then meet, talk about it, and hold each other accountable. And I ended up with a 93% completion rate, from 7 to 93. It's like a complete flip. But I couldn't find the software that was facilitating this in a proper way, so we built UpCoach to do that.
Can you indicate features that you took from your previous businesses in SaaS and in e-commerce and implementing them into those businesses? Or is it a totally different animal?
No, it's a totally different animal. The initial thing why I started building it because I want to have a group habit tracker. I'm a big believer that habits determine everything in your life. If you're rich, poor, happy, unhappy, obese, or in shape, it all boils down to which habits you're cultivating in your life. And we're social animals, and positive peer pressure is a real thing. So I want to have a group habit tracker. If we're together in a group, I want to see, are you doing your things or not? And I want to know that you can see if I'm doing my stuff or not, to hold each other accountable. And I couldn't find something like this. And this was the first tool we built. And then we just added more and more and more to it, to have this, to leverage positive peer pressure of people who want to improve their lives.
Amazing. Let me ask you this. Managing Happiness combines personal development with business principles, right? So what inspired you to apply structured framework from the business world to personal growth?
I came home after a meeting about roles and responsibility at Max CDN. It was like an entire day. We really drilled into this very deep because a business just runs much better if you have clean roles and responsibilities. No multiple people are responsible for one thing. It probably won't happen. So for team dynamics and team happiness, it's really important to do that. And I was sitting on the couch at home, and our daughter Emma she's 11 now. Back then she was still in diapers. She had a full diaper, and I told my wife hey honey, look, Emma has a full diaper. And my wife got really upset that I told her. She thought I'm telling her to change the diaper, but I was just making a tired observation. And then I thought why do we fight about this right now? Actually, we never talked about the roles and responsibilities in our households. And the next morning we sat down and we spelled it out. What do I expect of her and what does she expect of me? Took away 80% of the friction we had in our relationship. It was mind-blowing how well this worked. And I thought, if this works so well, maybe we take other elements of business and apply it to our personal life, like having regular meetings, shared calendars, shared task lists, family core values, vision, mission, kind of all that stuff that you do in a business. And it just worked like magic for us. And so that's why I decided to lean into that and share it with others.
In your work with UpCoach and Managing Happiness, you emphasize the importance of leadership and habit development you just mentioned. So how does this element contribute to building a team environment that encourages innovation and high productivity?
I think it's a Buddhist saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? If you're sloppy in this part of your life, you're also going to be sloppy in that part. If you're always on time here, you're always going to be on time there. If you're rude to the waiter, you're probably also going to be rude to customers. So it's just really how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you cheat on your wife, you potentially also cheat on me in business. And so having this awareness, I think it makes sense if people are on their personal best. This is why we have this course on applying these business principles to your personal life to become the CEO of your own life, to create entrepreneurs, people who are really owning their life in the position that they own, and defining your mission, vision, and values, and mission and vision in the most important areas of your life, like you yourself, mind, body, spirit. How can I be at, physically the best and mentally the best person I can be? Your mission and vision in your work, and also in your family and the relationships that you have in your life, and also creating goals and 90-day plans in this regard. I think this, how you do one thing, how you do everything. If you run your life as a clean ship, you're also going to run your business position in a clean manner.
All right, that's mind-blowing. You mentioned the philosophy of making decisions out of love, not fear. But tell us first what it is, and then let's talk about how to cultivate it in the culture of the business.
I'm a recovering introvert. So a few years ago, I would have never been on this podcast. I would have never given a speech
many
somewhere. Let's say like 2010 or so. This is when my transformation and everything before. I was always an entrepreneur, but I was always really uncomfortable running a meeting with my own team or being on a call with a customer or selling. I hated sales with a passion. I always felt like a used car salesman. I just sold out of fear because we have to sell or we die. We're a startup. And a good friend of mine, I met him at a conference in, I think, 2009 in Las Vegas at Blog World, like a bloggers conference. And he gave a keynote speech there, and he networked like a crazy person, and he had so much fun doing this. And I saw how good this was for his business, and I thought, I want this, but how do you do this being an introverted geek, right? So I thought, okay, let's work on this. So I went to Toastmasters. It's an organization to do public speaking, to learn how to public speak. It's like costs next to nothing. It's all over the world. In LA alone, there's 50 Toastmasters clubs. So I joined 2 of them, and I went to Toastmasters twice a week and trained public speaking, even though it was incredibly painful. And I went to 2 networking events per week, and I talked to everybody and their mother there, even though it was like incredibly painful. Like, okay, next person, hi, I'm David. Even though it was really painful.
Talk about throwing yourself in the deep water, huh?
Yes, cold deep water. Yeah.
Wow.
And it got better over time. Exposure therapy helped. But the real transformation, the real switch that flipped in my head was when my yoga teacher told me that every decision in life you either make out of love or out of fear. It's like 2 basic emotions that drives us to everything that we're doing. And this was so mind-altering for me because, for example, selling. If I sold before, I sold out of fear because we have to sell or we die. But once I flip this around, I know like, hey, this product can be good for you. I can even be a pushy sales guy saying like, hey man, come on, please buy it. It's going to help you so much. I really see a need. It's going to change your business or change your life. And you see that this is coming from a place of love, that I want to improve your life and that I'm not doing this to pay my mortgage or reach my numbers or buy myself a new Porsche, and this like really changed everything. Or public speaking or being on this podcast. Before I would have thought like, they probably think what I'm saying is stupid. They probably think I look weird. They probably think I have a weird German accent, etc., etc. And then it's only about me. I'm full of fear, and then I can't present. But if I act out of love, I'm, thinking, hey, somebody who hears this, it can potentially help them in their life or in their business. And then it's about them, not about me, and it becomes super easy. I can give you lots of examples. Actually, since you asked about company culture.
How do you do this? Is that like an awareness? Do you tell yourself, you wake up in the morning and tell yourself, let's act out of love, act out of love, act out of love? Or in every situation, you remind yourself acting out of love do you have a sticker on your computer? How do you do that?
I mean, I have stickers everywhere.
Because we always have a tendency to act out of fear, right?
Yes.
It's a natural tendency.
Yes, absolutely. So the hack for me is to just like listen to my emotions. If something feels good, I lean in and I go hard. If something doesn't feel good, then I take a step back and think like, why is this not feeling good? Is it the wrong thing to do? Is it against my values? Or is it just outside of my comfort zone? And then I can often just like, take a step back and reevaluate and like, no, actually it makes sense. I want to do this and I can find the angle of doing this out of love and not out of fear. For example, my wife used to always ask me to do stuff around the house, like, could you hang up this picture or do whatever? And I always did these tasks out of fear because I don't like doing them. But I do not want to have conflict with her. So I still, did them out of fear. And then when you do work out of fear, often the work is not that great. And then I had a fight with my wife afterwards, because it was not up to her spec. Then I learned to switch, oh, it doesn't feel good, I'm doing it now, like take a step back. No, I actually want to do it because I want to make my wife happy and I want to make our place nicer. And all of a sudden it's easier. Or another example for teams. At Maxian, we grew really fast. And we had the problem that at some point, one department did not know what the other one was doing. It was like quite chaotic. So I had the idea of creating an internal newsletter. And I told my assistant, please go to each department head, figure out what they did last week, what they plan on doing this week, and compile a nice newsletter. And every time she gave me the draft of this newsletter, it was quite shitty. And so I asked her to my office and sat her down. I said, like, hey, I think you're doing this task out of fear and not love. And she looked at me like, WTF, what do you want from me? So I explained, if you do this out of love, you would do your best to figure out what each department head has to say. Also what our CTO has to say, because she was not that technical. And you would compile it in a newsletter that everybody is looking forward to it. It's funny, it's engaging, it's entertaining, it brings them the information that they need. Then you would do it with love. But I think you're doing this thing only because David said this thing has to go out on Mondays at 4 p.m. And I never had to correct anything because it really clicked with her. At the end, we even had like a really cool animated newsletter where she was interviewing the people and cutting it together.
That's amazing. So let's try to operationalize it both in our personal lives and in the company. So in my personal life, if I got it right, the first thing is say, how do I feel about this next thing that I need to do? Recognize if it's sparking any fears in me, or if I'm doing it, if I'm going to do it out of
does
fear.
It feel good or does it not feel good?
Doesn't feel good, or does it feel good? First step, does it feel good? If it doesn't feel good, ask myself, is it fear?
The wrong thing?
Or
is it the wrong
is
thing?
it the wrong
Is it the wrong thing that I'm doing? Is it against my values, or is it like maybe not the best approach? Or is it outside of my comfort zone?
If it's outside of my comfort zone, that means that I can make the shift right there and saying, so how can I put more emphasis on making it out of love, and then it will be less uncomfortable, less the feeling of being outside of my comfort zone will diminish.
It will diminish, but also if you are doing it for somebody else, it's often, if you realize like, the benefits of somebody else that will have from this.
Yeah, have somebody else in mind, have love for someone else in mind. Amazing. And in the organization, how do you do that? How do you teach that? How do you create a culture that behaves like that with an organization of, let's say, like 20 people?
So any behavior that you want to live in an organization is usually anchored in your core values, right? So it's one of our core values is, act out of love, not fear. And the best way I found is to explain every big decision, or every decision, as a matter of fact, that you give to somebody with a core value or the mission or the vision of the company. For example, if you promote somebody, like, hey, I'm promoting Steven because he's been really showing this core value and that core value by doing this and this with the customer, doing that and that. Or funny example, a friend of mine started Ring.com, the doorbell company. And I was talking to his head of engineering about the power of vision statements and mission statements to get clarity in the team and to also delegate that people can act by themselves. And he brought up the funny story of one of his engineers coming to him. And Ring has this product. It's like a floodlight that you put on the side of your house and has a camera and a microphone and a speaker. And when somebody walks past, the floodlights go on and you can see this person and talk to them like, hey, what are you doing on my property? Leave or call the police. This engineer had this amazing idea saying like, hey, I have the best idea. We're going to create the party mode because this thing has a microphone and lights. When party mode is on and you have a party in the garden, it can flash, the lights can flash to the music, And this engineer thought like, oh my God, that's the best idea ever. And the head of engineering could have said like, dude, that's a stupid idea. Please go to your desk and continue working. And then this person would be discouraged and hurt, and even he would never bring a new idea. And he'd also like, not be productive.
We have a question exactly on that.
And so he said instead like, okay, fun idea, but what does this have to do with our vision statement, which is to make neighborhoods safer? And then the
Mm-hmm.
engineer like, oh yeah, it makes sense. It's not online. So when you really hammer into the hearts and souls and minds of people in your organization what the mission, vision, and the values are, and people can make decisions without you. They will not always ask you because they can run autonomous. Almost like an anthill, the animal kingdom. It's called emergence, where, for example, an anthill, there's like 4 types of ants. There's workers, warriors, foragers. Yeah, I think that's the word. And one other. And when they meet each other on their ant pathways, they smell each other, and when the ratio's off, for example, there's not enough warriors anymore, then somebody who's a worker just like switches to being a warrior because the ratio's off. So they intuitively know what to do without going back to headquarters or the queen, because they just know the vision and mission and the values and the rules are clear, and so it's easy for them to make these decisions.
Wow. And how do you do that when onboarding a new employee to the business? Do you
Company?
explain, do you go through everything? Say, hey, we need you to act out of love, not fear. Do you say that
Yes, we
up
do.
front? Maybe fear,
Yes, we do.
maybe thinks, what's wrong with this company?
No, that's totally fine because, like, same as the core value I explained before of build cool shit. We want to push people away who think like, oh my God,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
never work for a company who uses the word shit
Mm,
in their core values. But we want to drag in the engineering nerds who like to build cool shit and are also like okay with using this
yeah,
jargon because they were a fit
yeah.
for Maxian's culture. So we like having a
Like a
video of
screening,
the
like a
hiring.
screening process.
Yeah, it's a screening process. Yes. Same with
Yeah.
like if I take off the mask, I think, we talked about this before when you do the 3-2-1 exercise or your lifeline
Mhm.
exercise, but taking off the mask and really showing who you are, I think it's incredibly liberating because, when you meet somebody and you just like show who you are and just like do not talk about the weather and small talk, but just go deep into things that are going on in your life or your beliefs or whatever, then either you push them away because they think like, oh my God, this guy's a nut job. I want nothing to do with him. But that's a good thing because then he's not part of your tribe anyway, right? And versus the ones who resonate with you, you will drag them in very fast.
I wrote it down.
To go back to your initial question, so we like to have this video of the hiring manager explaining the job posting and also our mission and our vision as a first step.
Yeah.
Then when we, on the contract, on the last pages, we have our core values and we ask people to initial next to each core value and to sign that, I'm going to live up to
Mm.
these core values or, I have a place here at this company. And then in the onboarding, we also talk again about vision, mission, values. And we tell for each core value, we tell them core value stories on how people lived up to these values. Because like, if you just have a core value integrity on the wall, like what does this mean? Like perfection or whatever, right? But if you have stories that explain.
So you give them examples, you have stories and examples you share with them to really understand. And yeah, you ask them, did you understand that? Did you test them on that? Can you give me an example from your side that like how would something like that look like in your work? Do you test them or do you just let them sign? I got it.
I th- I personally do not test people in this regard. I think our recruitment team may do that, but I'm not part of this
Okay.
process.
That's amazing. I'm definitely gonna try that out. All right. Some kind of a personal question. I would say somewhat of a personal question. You're managing several companies at once, David. What's your secret to keeping everything running smoothly and ensuring each team works effectively?
Well, I think like really building this culture of true ownership where people really own their position, they're aligned with like the direction that we're going into. I think that's like the key thing of building a great culture and environment where people are aligned. And just like a good sports team, if like you have good synergy, energy, and mindset inside of a team, they just, you create a winning team. And the coach does not necessarily have to be there, it's just like a added value. But I always have general managers or business partners in the businesses who are operating them, so which allows me, I usually manage myself out of the businesses as soon as possible so I can just like watch the machine as it runs and kind of like, optimize here and there. And I do my best to empower people that they can do the job by themselves, being good at delegation and letting people make the mistakes and just like coach them properly. Actually, my management mentor told me when you're a leader or a good manager has to wear 4 different hats. First, you have to wear the hat of the leader and you have to set expectations. The second one, you have to be the inspector and you have to inspect what you expect, because people only respect what you inspect. I say it again because it's a mouthful, but I think it's super powerful. So inspect what you expect of people, because people will only respect what you inspect. And so that's the second head. So first, the leader set expectations. Second one, the inspector. The third one is the coach. And based on your inspection, you figure out what people can improve, right? And then you give them coaching and guidance to improve that. And you basically run from 1 to 3, these 3 heads. You do them over and over and over. And then once in a while, you put on the head of the judge and you deliver rewards or consequences.
So leader,
Inspector, coach.
inspector, coach, judge. That's a lot of hats.
Yeah, you gotta wear a lot of hats. And the hats where I always messed up was the second one. I never inspected. I told people, I trust people, like, oh, you do this, and then the person does like work for 2 weeks, and then I see like, and I put my hands on my head, like, oh my God, like, what is this? What did you do? So I like to have like a rule of thumb. If I give somebody a task, after 10% of the task is done, I like to kind of check in, especially in a remote work setting, like with
10%.
externals, to see like direction, is it going to the right direction? So you can, give early feedback. And I also like to be able to inspect what I expect without necessarily bothering people. For example, is it in a spreadsheet? Share the spreadsheet from the beginning with me so I can see, like, is it progressing? Where is it going? The analogy is like if you have somebody paint a fence for you, if you stand behind him the entire time, and look what he's doing, like it's a bad vibe. Also waste your time. Versus like do it elegantly, like check your mail, go out, check your mail, and while you walk past, you kind of like inspect, what's going on. It's like more elegant ways of doing that.
That is so important. I think so many, including myself, of course, get it wrong. We want to give ownership. We want to give autonomy and everything, and not be the guy who stands behind you looking at you like that, like a manager in a restaurant, something like that. But we're giving like too much, and not wearing the inspector hat, and then getting something that we didn't expect, and being disappointed with that. So knowing how to inspect and when to inspect, that's crucial, David. That's crucial. So you're saying start at 10%, start after 10% of completing the task or whatever.
Yes, for example, like, hey,
the
please
mission
work on this, create a spreadsheet, do this research. Once you have 10% done, just like, send me a quick, the link of the sheet so I can kind of check out where this
one is the
direction is going.
10%, and the second is find ways to inspect that will not feel like someone having someone over his shoulder
Yes,
looking at
breathing
him
down
all
your
the
neck.
time. So
Yes, correct.
like transparent inspection, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
you can see it, but he can't feel
Non-intrusive
you.
inspection. Yes. Yeah, for example,
Yeah.
if I tell you, like, hey, do this research, put in the spreadsheet, share the Google Doc with me,
Just share the Google Doc.
spreadsheet with me, and then I can just like always like check in from time to time, like, oh, is he progressing? And then I can also say like, hey, when I see that, you're not really making progress with this, I'll say like, not like, I've seen you haven't done anything. I'll say like, hey man, how's it going with this project? And then be like, oh shit,
Okay, so that was my next question, my follow-up question. Like, how do you control your urge to like immediately react? You see after 10%, maybe it's not in the right direction. I know I shouldn't immediately react, and I know I should react in a manner that will empower him to continue the work, but on a slightly different approach, maybe, or a different way. So how do you give the feedback? How do you know how to give the right feedback?
So two things. Like if it's directionally wrong, I'll always like, jump in because I do not want him to waste his time. Right. I want him
Sure.
to fix it.
Will
To
it be
not have
like
the
you
urge
call
to
him, or you write him on the
I mean,
spreadsheet,
usually like,
or you send
yeah,
him an
no,
email?
a comment on spreadsheet, or like a Slack message, like, hey, you have 2 minutes, or like I create a Loom video. I love Loom. It's like, remote work. It's the best thing. Just like create
Yeah.
a Loom video. Hey, I saw you doing this and this and this. Like, what about this and this and this? And then send it. If it's something that's not super urgent, I see something you're doing that could be improved or whatever, but it's not like super critical that I reach out right now. I like to add it to our level 10 meeting document, which is coming from EOS. we have like the meeting agenda. So like to add it to a meeting agenda, because that's out of my head. I do not interrupt you doing what you're doing and kind of like, ripping out of your zone of focus to focus on this other thing that I just found. But I make sure I'm actually going to bring it up. So in the next meeting, in the level 10 meeting, I see this as a talking point, and then I can bring it up to you. And in terms of criticizing people, everybody heard about the management bullshit sandwich, which is like, telling something, hey, you're really great there, but you're not good here, this sucks, and then you're really great at the end. I think this little bit outdated, because like this can also go wrong. I like to do the thing that my mother always said. My mother always said, be hard in the case, but soft with the person. So for example, let's say you're always late for meetings, I'd pull you apart, not in front of everybody, at, in a one-on-one, or like, like, do you have a second to come to my office? It's like, hey man, I really appreciate your work. You do really good stuff. I also like you personally. But this late coming business, it's like bad for extra reasons, it's disrespect for other people's time. Maybe other people start doing this as well, blah, blah, blah. Can I give you reasons why it's bad?
Yeah.
I'm happy to help you to eliminate the causes for you always being late. I'm here for you to help you through that. But if you can't fix that, I'll have to let you go. So basically, I'm very hard in the case. I'm telling you, like, dude, fix this or I fire you. But I'm hard in the case, but I'm also soft for the person. And I think if you handle things like this, you can tell anybody anything you want to tell.
In a genuine way, of course, because the person is more than just
everything.
A late guy to meetings. He also is doing great things. A lot of times the guys who are doing the best work, sometimes they're the guys who come late to meetings. So you mentioned that to him while being very hard on the case. That's great. And David, how do you balance your personal life with demanding business schedule?
The biggest game changer for me to manage my quite hectic and full business schedule is that I color code my calendar. I color code my calendar where I have personal time, family time, and business. Business is blue, family is green, personal time is yellow. So everything's color coded, and I just like pre-block things. For example, I block family time, bringing my daughter to school. I block family time, like date nights with my wife, or just like hang out time with her. And personal time, I have like I work out 3 times a week. In the morning, my trainer comes to my house and we work out, and 3 times I go running. So these things are blocked in my calendar, and I save myself for myself, because if you call me and say like, hey man, can we do this podcast at 3 a.m. or my time, or at during family time, I would be inclined to say like, yeah, let's do it. But so I always ask people to use Calendly. So Calendly picks the free slots that are not blocked by family or personal time. I think that's like the biggest hack.
So it's blocking time for family, business, and personal, which is it's always the same hours, or it repeats itself every week, or every week you're recalibrating that?
No, it repeats itself. The majority of the things, yes.
Okay, great. So David, what in your experience is a secret to getting employees genuinely excited to come to work each day?
I think the biggest hack, or the biggest thing you can do inside of your organization to make people genuinely excited to come to work every day is make them work on meaningful things and make them see the impact that they're having in the work. So they're not just a small wheel in the machine, they can actually have massive impact.
How do you do that?
As I shared before with the example of the how we do software development at UpCoach, give people the freedom to choose the things that they want to work on, like almost the opposite of micromanagement, right? Empower people that they can make their own decisions, that they can celebrate the successes. I think also profit sharing, I think, is a really cool idea for organizations. So people have like also a monetary incentive to do better or to save costs here. That we're all pulling. I always like to be aligned, that we're all pulling on the same string in the same direction. I think this is absolutely crucial. And then make sure that people are trained on how to communicate with each other and do exercise like the lifeline exercise or the 3-to-1, that people take off the masks and also know their colleagues on a deeper personal level.
We talked about ownership before. So how can I create a culture where my employees take more ownership? How do I empower that and feel more personally invested in the company's goal? You just touched upon profit sharing. Can you elaborate on that a little
Mhm.
bit and maybe be a little
Yeah.
bit more specific, and whatever else can contribute to empowering the employees to take more ownership and be personally invested in the company's goals?
Yeah, I mean, profit sharing is a great idea of like, you can either do this like as a group, so people get like their normal salary, and then based on the profit of the company, let's say we have like 1 million in profits, let's say 200,000 of that will distribute across the team, and everybody gets equal or based on how much salary they have, seniority, etc. So it's like different levers on how you can make
Mm.
this work. To me, it always feels better when people have ownership in a sense of like profit share. You know the story of the CEO buys a new Porsche, and then one of the employees sees it in the in front of the office, is like, "Oh my god, great car!" And the CEO says like, "Come on, sit inside, check it out." He was like, "Oh yeah, it feels really nice." And then the CEO says, "Okay, man, if you work really really hard, maybe in 2 or 3 years I can buy another one." So to kind of not
Mhm.
make more alignment, and kind of do
So
good by
not
all.
that.
s-
Don't
Yeah,
do
not
that.
that. Yes, do good by all the stakeholders, not just the shareholders. I think that's like the.
But is it only money? I mean, of course, profit sharing is great, and it feels also wonderful to know that I'm enjoying the company's growth and profit and everything. But is that the only thing to endorse ownership?
No, as I mentioned before, like the people do meaningful work and that are not micromanaged. So they have like autonomy over their time as much as possible, over the things that they're going to work on, just like, aligned in the common goal of what we want to accomplish. I think that's absolutely crucial that people feel free to make decisions. Nobody wants to be the small wheel in the machine, just being told, like, now carry this brick over there and then wait until I tell you the next thing to do, and also I think you wasted the talent or the capabilities of people.
Is there a framework for helping an employee to feel more meaningful?
I mean, the most extreme one
Mhm.
is called Reinventing Organizations. It's a book that took the idea of spiral dynamics, which is another book which talks about the consciousness levels of societies, and translating this into business. And the lowest form is, and it's also color coded. So the lowest form is red, which is a fear-driven organization, which is like a mafia type structure, the stronger survives type thing, right? And then I think orange is one up, which is the military, where it often happens like, it's a you're my general and you tell me to do something, I will do it even if I know it's the wrong thing. And then one level up is a company. It's like the American standard corporate, so it's about
Yeah.
productivity and accountability, etc. Then one level up is green, and this is like a mission, vision, and values driven company, which is most of my companies are. And then
Hmm.
there's one above, which is a teal organization, where it's a leaderless organization, where you do not necessarily need a leader of the company. People make decisions by themselves. A friend of mine has a chemical manufacturing company here in Turkey, and he implemented this teal organization in his company where employees make decisions about like how much salary they're getting, how much time off they're getting. Like people, the team decides about everything. And he fired
Hmm.
himself, and the company grew 3x after he left in 2.5 years.
Really?
You know,
Let me ask you this: what stops you from making that transition at the moment? I've been hearing a lot of controversy about this model. Some people really, really are for it, and others like I just heard an interview with the CEO of Airbnb, and he said the opposite. Like, people don't want autonomy, they don't need autonomy, they want someone to tell them what to do, but they do want to feel meaningful. But he has a really opposite
and
approach.
it's true. It's true that there's different types of people, right? People who can become entrepreneurs, really be the CEO of their own life, and take ownership over things, and other people who just want to be told what to do, right? And so my friend has the biggest issue that my friend has in his company is that finding people who are willing, not being able to hide. Because you can hide from the CEO, or let's say sports analogy, you can hide from the coach, right? You can hide the fact from the coach that you went out partying until the early morning hours, and that you drank too much alcohol, and this is why you suck today at playing. You can't hide it from the team. The team will know,
Right,
because they're your
right.
peers, your colleagues, etc. Right? And so he says the hardest thing is to find people that are willing, not being able to hide, because there's no hiding.
Hmm.
People will know, which
Yeah.
also his team also hires and fires people. So, but it's also cool because let's say as this in a bigger organization, if somebody's not hitting their numbers, they'll just like fire him, right? You're not working out, will fire you. But in this, where the team is kind of running it, people know what you're going through because they know you personally. They know, or maybe you have currently struggle in your family or like something with health or whatever. Then they like let you, see if you can like get back on your feet. Versus if you're doing it because you have a side hustle, this is why you're not performing, they'll fire you. And, it always depends. I would never dare to say like, as the Airbnb guy said, this is how it is. It always depends.
Yeah,
It varies by
sure.
company. It varies by person. But I think it's really inspiring to do that.
So I asked you, what's preventing you now from transitioning into the last level?
We're transitioning it's a big shift. At some companies we have already implemented this. In another company, my largest company, which is LTV Plus, it's a business process outsourcing company, mainly doing customer support, customer service. We recruit a lot of people because BPO is very people heavy, and so the idea is we are taking each inside of the company, we create multiple P&Ls, and so the main business, which is the managed support business, will buy services from the recruiting arm that we have. So they'll basically, if they hire somebody, they will internally pay the recruiting arm, but the recruiting arm also sells to other companies. So we're basically creating like a micro company. It's like almost like a microservice when you talk tech inside of an organization. So this is like the idea of like how we're slowly transitioning to it to build these microservices. And then we create these entrepreneurs, people, one or two people who are like at the helm of this new service. And then we also do different compensation structures in there. It's always like up for negotiation, but I'm really excited about like building this ecosystem of microservices companies even inside of a company.
Yeah, I love it. Let me just share. Personally, I have two businesses. I'm now building my third one, and you are like my future self. It's like I have someone that can show me like how this looks like, and I'm learning so much. I've already filled out like 4 pages. I have a lot to implement, so it's going to take a little time, but it's amazing. Okay, so we talked about. Okay, so just to sum that point up, give me like uh, one impactful step that I can take right now to make a my employees feel empowered to take ownership of their role. One hack or one step that I can take right now.
Kind of hard to pinpoint the most ideal one. Again, the answer, it always depends.
Maybe the easiest one to implement before profit sharing, because I need to think about that. That could take time.
I think the best way to make people have real ownership in business is to let them own it. For example, if you really delegate the task to somebody else and they have to figure it out and they can't come back with questions all the time, I ask people not to come back with questions or like point out problems, because every idiot can point out problems. It's fairly simple. I ask people if they have a situation that they want to solve where they're stuck, that they come back with 2 possible solutions. Ideally they write me an email like, hey, I have this problem and I think I could solve it this way and I could solve it that way. Because then they're forced to really think things through versus just like, quote unquote, coming to daddy and ask like, hey, please help, So kind of letting them figure it out by themselves and accepting, I think, comes down to proper delegation, like really empowering people and letting people make mistakes, and then going back to the framework of like being the leader, being the inspector, the coach, and the judge to let them figure it out. And what comes to mind is a great book, The 4-Minute Manager or the 5-Minute Manager and the Monkey. Do you know this concept?
Yeah.
So for those of you who have not heard it, the idea is if people from your team come to you and ask you a question like, hey, I have this problem with this thing, and you do not send them away with this problem, if it kind of stays on your desk to figure something out, it's the same analogy. They come in your office with a monkey on their shoulder, and then they leave this monkey in your office. At some point there's like 10 monkeys jumping around, and you're responsible for this now. So when somebody comes in, you can talk about their monkey with them, but then they ideally go out and still own that monkey. Otherwise you'll be the bottleneck for everything, and that's the opposite of proper delegation. But I think it often comes down to people that accepting that people, you may be faster in certain things, but in order to delegate properly, you have to invest in the people and grow them that they really understand these things so they can take things off your plate.
And the way to make them understand these things and really develop is not to solve their problems or show them how to do it better, but help them to find their own way to do it better and their own solutions and their own development. It's great. I have to say I know that for quite some times, but it's not easy to always remember that and not easy to always do that, right? It's a work in progress. But thanks for the
I have another
reminder.
one. You're welcome. I
Sure,
have another
let's
one,
go.
which is how to.
Let's go.
My favorite way of doing one-on-ones with people that are direct reports to me, I always like to ask them 3 questions. The first question is, what's going really great right now? Because then they can boast and say, like, show off and, like, kind of go into a good mood, right? The second one that I ask them is, like, what is draining you right now? Because if you ask them, like, what's not going well, they will not have ideas. But if you ask them what's draining you right now, it allows them to kind of dig deep, and it often excavates, like, real issues that are going on. And they may be personal or business related, but it's a good thing. Like, what's draining right now? What's holding you back? And then last one, I like to ask them, like, from a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate your performance over the last week or 2 weeks, depending on how often we meet? Because this allows me to give them direct feedback. And, it becomes like a normal thing that every time we meet, we have this feedback session, versus like the annual review, which I think is complete BS because I can't have a hard time remembering what I ate for lunch today. Like, how would I remember? How could I give you good feedback on, like, how to improve what you're doing, If the coach
Sure.
talks to you every 6 months, it doesn't work. So let's say they say, okay, no, I think I'm an 8, then I have the opportunity, like, no, dude, I think you're a 3 because of X, Y, Z, and then we have like this healthy discussion about this and have like these learning opportunities from this. And we also always like record what is the number that we both agreed on that we had, because then it allows us also, let's say we do profit sharing based on performance, we can go back through your the agendas of the weekly meetings that we had and kind of calculate, like, how well did you perform, and based on this you can get your bonus. I think it's a, or like if you have to put somebody on a performance improvement plan, it's a very easy telling thing. If you can say, if you're always like apart, like, he thinks he's doing amazing and you think he's not, at some point it's just a good measuring stick, to figure things out.
That's great. That's great. I got it. So I think now we're going to have the opportunity to talk about the 1, 2, 3 method. So how can I foster an environment where employees feel comfortable showing up as themselves, both personally and professionally, and show vulnerability and the willingness to ask for help?
I think if you foster a culture where people do their job out of love and not out of fear, and you have like a more loving, caring environment inside of the business, uh, this almost solves itself. And
Hmm.
2 tools that I really love to implement in my businesses is either the lifeline exercise where people share the ups and downs of their life with the team, or the 3-to-1 where people share 3 events, 2 people, and 1 decision that they've made that really had a big impact in their life, to really get to know the person on the other side and to really be vulnerable and take off the mask and show people, like, hey, this is me, to have like a deeper emotional connection to people. And once you've done this, once you've built this trust inside of the company, because I think good culture equals trust. High trust equals good culture, if you can measure this somehow, because then people have an easier time criticizing the other person if they see something's wrong, versus like in a very fear-based thing, you're like, oh, I don't want to throw XYZ under the bus. Maybe I get into trouble for this, or he retaliate. And I
So
love
I
to
don't want
implement
to
the.
create a better culture. I want to endorse trust, and that will
Yes,
make
if you have a really
make
trusting
a better
team,
culture.
we always say
Yeah.
ATM, alignment, trust, and motivation. If the team is very aligned, as we talked about before, like having, clear vision and mission, being bought into this, and trust, if let's say we play basketball together, I know that you got my back. I know if I pass the ball to you, you will not mess it up, etc. So I think trust is a very essential thing. And what I love to implement is the error log inside of the company. So every error that we commit, every like quote unquote fuck up, if I can say this on your podcast,
You can.
um, we add to the error log, and it's like, when did it happen, who was involved, which customer was affected, is it solved or not, what happened in detail, and then most important, this is the kicker, what can we do to make sure this never happens again? Because if we learn from this and we implement this, then we are a self-healing organism. We like remove the bugs of our operating system. By doing this, you can only do this if you have trust in company, because otherwise people will shove it under the rug and this will create lots of problems down the line. So I always tell people, you can mess up pretty much whatever you want to do. You will never get into trouble with me, but you get into real trouble if you're not adding your mess up into the error log, because then you're like viciously hiding things from me, because it's cool. We all make mistakes, we move fast, we break things. But if we always learn from things, then, it always gets better. I also have an error log in my personal life. If a habit is not clicking, if something's not working in my personal life, I figure out what, how can I make sure this never happens again? And sometimes things crystallize out. It's like, goes on my not to do list, for example, using social media or email or Slack before I get out of bed, before I do my morning routine, because sometimes I just get sucked into it. I think it's the best learning tool to have a well-run organization, because you remove the bugs in your life or in your business.
Can you briefly share again, repeat the two tools for bringing out, themselves and helping the other people in the team, getting to know them and the impact that it's making?
So the two best tools to create vulnerability and realness inside of a company, inside of a team, to basically take off the mask, are two exercises. One is the lifeline exercise, where people share the ups and downs in their life. And the second one is the 3-to-1 exercise, where people share 3 things that happened in their life that massively impacted them, 2 people in their life, and 1 decision that they've made that really impacted their life. And I always like to, the lifeline is like the long version, and the 3-to-1 is like the shorter version. Also, if you want like to go really deep with the team, for example, in the leadership team, I always suggest to do the lifeline exercise, because you really want to go really deep and like share for 20 minutes the story of somebody's life, and then for 20 minutes do the sharing, shared experiences, like, oh, I had a drug phase as well, or I lost my father when I was young as well. And often you see grown men cry like little kids when we do these things, because it gets really real and vulnerable. And this is like this extreme bonding effect. It's like it's almost like a team that went through some tough times. Like have the deep bond, or like somebody who comes back from the war or whatever. Like having this deep team bond can be achieved by this, because you really take off the mask and you are who you are. And it's not Stephen from marketing and Stephanie from accounting. It's Stephanie who also went through depression, and Stephen who also lost his father when he was young. So you really connect people on a deeper level, and this builds lots of trust. And I think trust equals good culture.
It's amazing. So if I would ask you, what's your best tip for keeping top talent loyal and excited to stay in the company for long term, would you tell me it's having the trust, it's having a place, an environment where I trust people and people trust me? Or is it another thing as well?
I think it's definitely like a big component to it. Having like a sports team analogy is always work great. Have like a high performing team, because A players want to play with other A players. So it's like removing C players from the team, because they, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Let's say we play soccer together, and we want to win, and you're the goalie and you're like on your phone, and this is why we lose and get goals. Like I get demotivated. I want to be like on a winning, high performing team. I think that's like a crucial thing, to create this great culture of trust where people know each other. Also, personality tests is really interesting to kind of know about the other person, how they tick, and then do things like the lifeline to be vulnerable and go deeper. And I think this makes people stay long, because they will do meaningful work that they care about with people that they like. And ideally, if you throw in some profit share, then like what's the reason for leaving?
That's like the magic 3, right? Meaningful work, people that they like, and sharing the profit. Excellent. Right.
Again, ATM, alignment, trust, and motivation. Yes, it's
the work is aligned with what I want to do. That's alignment, meaningful work. Trust, that's
Correct.
with people that I want to do, and motivation is getting a share of the profit.
Motivation almost, profit share, but like usually if you have alignment, trust, and trust, also being aligned is like being compensated fairly, or like, having profit share can also be under the A for alignment. I think the motivation comes automatically if you have the alignment and the trust, like a good culture in a team. I think the motivation will flow automatically.
Perfect. Can you share, maybe from your experience of organizations, companies, entrepreneurs you've coached, you've worked with, what's the one thing you see employers doing wrong again and again, and they should avoid if they want to keep their best talent, their best people from leaving? What's the most common mistakes people are doing?
I've seen a lot of ego in people. That ego is often in the way of greatness. So ego, like me, it's like more fear. I've seen this in my company as well. Like somebody who's not
Can you
willing
share an
to hire
example of
people that
how
are,
this looks like?
yeah, for example, somebody's a middle manager not willing to hire somebody who's actually better than themselves because they're scared that they, get replaced, or that he will look bad because this other person
Hmm.
is better than them. So I think if you boil it down, I think people who start doing politics. I think politics is like always it's the death of good culture. It's the death of a high performing team, because then you have to kind of like wear this mask and kind of make show that how good you are versus. Yeah, I think this is like anti politics. I'm very anti politics in companies.
So if someone wanted to make the workplace feel more like a community and less like a hierarchy, where
Mhm.
where should I start? What's the first step?
I think reading the idea of reinventing organizations, reading this book was incredibly eye-opening to me. One example in there is it's a nursing company that, nurses that go and help outpatients, so people that are in their homes. And they have 7,000 employees or so. It's like a fairly large organization. And they're all broken down to groups of eight nurses. They organize themselves. And the mind-blowing thing is they have no HR, there's like no, how do you call this? No corporate overhead. The only corporate overhead is all nurses and 25 coaches that teach them their methodologies. But they organize them all by themselves. I think that's really fascinating if you can really build this community-driven company where there's like there's a clear direction of like the mission and vision and the values that we want to live up to, but then people have like autonomy on how to fulfill on that.
What would be the first step if I wanted to create an environment like that? Like one of the exercises you told me before, or just onboarding people who are looking for this kind of environment.
I think the first step, and this is also what we're doing with Love Not Fear, with with Love Not Fear, we have the business operating system creating these great cultures, and the personal operating system, like how to create an entrepreneur, how people really own their own life by
Mm-hmm.
applying business principles to
Mm-hmm.
their personal life. I think it starts with creating this great culture where there's deep trust and alignment. This is like kind of the base for everything. And then you can put on multiple organizational structures like, flat hierarchy, strict hierarchy, or like even leaderless, but it all boils down to good communication and good culture. So I would always start there because, like, doesn't matter where you're going. This is always like the lubricant for having a successful organization.
Right. So how do you encourage employees to take risks and bring new ideas, even if they're worried about failure? How do you encourage them to do that?
Just as I mentioned in the airlock, like if we fail, we celebrate the failure. Like, oh, dude, this was like really not good. What did we learn from this? Fail stands for first attempt in learning, and then we talk about this together in the team and figure out what can we do to make sure this never happens again, and what do we learn from it. And then it's not an issue. If you do the same mistake 10 times in a row, we gotta have a discussion. But like other than that, feel free to go wild. I want you to. I think my worst nightmare is if there's team members that I have to push to do things. I'd rather
Yeah.
like you to, do and ask ask for forgiveness versus permission.
Yeah.
I think this is like, because I rarely had this. I had this way more often that I have to push somebody versus somebody that like was running too fast. But it's like, hey, dude, like slow down. That's too crazy. I think I never actually had that. So
Wow.
just encourage, create this culture where people can really lean in and go bonkers.
So what I'm learning from you is have a framework, have a process for failing, so you can really feel secure to take risks, because we have a process for that. We celebrate the failure, we talk about it, we have a discussion. When they see that the culture or an organization have a process for that, then it's acceptable. Then it's even encouraged to take those risks because we know what to do with them. right?
People generally do not want to, even if it's okay to celebrate that they mess up, people don't want to mess up. People always want to do a good
Yeah.
job.
They want other people to be happy with them, to like them.
Correct.
But if you communicate to the people, listen, we're going to like you anyway, either way, unless you don't learn from your mistakes. But if you take the risk, we got your back with this process, then you can move forward. That's amazing. How can I encourage creativity and new ideas? It's a little bit like the risk, but how can I encourage creativity and new ideas in a team without losing focus on the main goals? Because there's so many ideas. I want to encourage the creativity and the new ideas with the team members, but we still have the main goal and someone have to navigate that. So how do you reconcile that?
If you read the book Rocket Fuel by the EOS guys, it talks about the dynamic between a visionary and an implementer. Visionary, I have like 10 ideas every day. I could like a minute, I could like have always ideas, and I need the counterpart of a visionary
Figures.
who kind of like have of a implementer who slows me down. Says like, okay, that's cool ideas, but like, what do we do about these other irons that we have in the fire? So I'm not spinning up too many projects, because at the end of the day, the magic is in completing things, picking the right things and then completing them. But, if you just like start 100 things and you only complete 2, it's probably better to complete 5 mediocre ones versus just completing 2, if this makes sense, right? So for me, it's like having this counterpart that slows me down, so I'm not like overstraining myself or the team. And again, going back to mission, vision, and values to make sure whatever ideas we're having is in line with our mission and our vision. And another thing, actually, having a clear 90-day plan is also really, really helpful to kind of know, like, okay, you can have all the ideas that you want, you put them into our parking lot, and then when we make our next 90-day plan, we can revisit them all and see like which one do we really want to tackle. But mainly it's like, these 9 days we want to rock out these things and nothing else, because otherwise we start 10 things and complete none, right?
Do you have this issue sometimes where you want to help employees to find their own balance between, giving their best at work and not burning out, having a work-life balance of their own? How do you go about doing that if you want them to give their best but not get burned out? Do you have any rules about that with your employees?
Yeah, I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And we want to do this together for many years. And I actually, initially, in the MaxDN days, I was going crazy. I was working like 15-hour days minimum type thing, and 7 days a week. And I felt guilty being in the gym. But now I understand that when I'm going to the gym, even like hanging in a sauna or going for a run, I sort my thoughts, and it helps me to make better decisions. Like now lately I'm pushing to get more sleep, because I usually don't sleep that much, but like if I sleep better, I'm just in better shape and have better, higher quality output. And it's the same with your employees or your team members. We want to make sure that all areas in their lives are okay. And in managing happiness, we always focus on like, there's the me, mind, body, spirit, health, fitness, food, etc. Then there's me professionally, then there's me, family, and relationships. If I only focus on business and one of the other 2 circles, health or relationships, breaks, business breaks as well. If I go through a divorce, business is going to suffer. If I get sick, business is going to suffer. So I think it's understanding that it's a marathon, not a sprint, and managing the 3 areas in your life is probably the move.
Yeah, I totally get it. So thinking of maybe cutting a work day short for going to the gym, or for sleeping better, or for doing other activities that frees your mind, is not sacrificing the business. It's the other way around. You do that in order to be more productive for the long term. So
Or
thinking
like,
about it.
I would not even say necessarily cut the workday short, because like if you work 8 hours a day, most people work more anyway.
Yeah, I'm talking about cutting a 12-hour day shorter and not feeling guilty
Yeah,
about it.
or you can combine things. For example, like go for dinner with business partners or friends that's kind of aligned, and you talk about business. So you have like some social time plus getting something done. Or my business partner Chris, who I did MaxDM with, he always goes on the walking meetings, so we always like go for a walk and we talk. We go for a 45-minute, 5-hour walk, and we just like talk stuff through and take notes and stuff like this. It's also it works quite well, actually. If you have to present something on the screen, etc., then it's not that good, but for lots of meetings it's actually doable. For brainstorming, etc.,
We need to make a video with the 10 best ways to incorporate work and
Yes,
personal and family together at the same time.
yes, I'm totally down for that.
David, Two last questions. What's the one piece of advice you would give young David in his early entrepreneurial journey that you think would make the biggest difference in his result and well-being?
Start acting out of love and not fear much sooner than I have been. I think it's clear the winner, because it really changed all areas of my life, from sales to relationships to, it's just a game changer.
Amazing. And we have a framework for that. So that's perfect. Last question is, what does reaching the tipping point of success mean to you?
I'm not sure where the tipping point of my success is. I'm a practitioner. I like doing what I'm doing, and I like to do cool things. I like to build cool things. I like to solve interesting problems. And so, like, how do you measure success? Like how much joy I'm having doing what I'm doing, or I'm not necessarily, measuring it in dollars and cents is like one way, but I think it's not the right one. Because like there's a million ways how you can make money. It's more about like how many fun days you have doing the things you like doing with people that you like. I think this is like kind of winning at life.
Amazing. Well, my definition is like going from grinding and feeling bad to making an impact and feeling great.
Yeah, going from surviving to thriving, I guess, right?
And usually, it's a subjective thing. It's in our minds, because my wife was always telling me, just feel like that now. Just forget that you're grinding, and feel like you're having an impact, as the impact you want at this moment. You just don't see it, but it's realizing as we speak. Uh,
Yeah, I think it's just like playing. I like to see business as play. It's not a war. It's not a fight. It's like, just let's play. Like it's, and then you do the things that you're doing out of love, versus like feeling it like it's a grind. Oh, I have to do this. No, I get to do this. It's cool. It's fun. And even though it's like it's 80-20, like 20% of the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis are not really fun, still doing those because they enable you to do the other 80%, which are amazing.
Amazing. David, I want to thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate the extensive time you put here. And you have enormous knowledge and experience, and I've learned so much, and I can't wait to implement. I don't know if I can do it. I think it's going to take me 2 years to implement all that, but at least the main parts of it, I'll let you know how it went. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Hey, if today's conversation resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and joining our growing community of seasoned, mission-driven entrepreneurs. Here you'll find insights to help you break free from the endless grind, build sustainable momentum, and confidently break through your current ceiling. I also invite you to check out the next video playlist to discover new strategies, get inspired, and find the guidance you need to reach your next business level without the burnout. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.